Our story begins when the Innu settled throughout Quebec. Traveling from the south 7,000 years ago, the Innu moved into what is now the north shore of Quebec during a warming period. There is evidence of the Innu having made contact with the Norse, which was recorded in the Norse sagas. Norwegian Paul Knutsen made contact with the Innu in 1360. Followed by Scottish contact in 1398 when Henry Sinclair makes contact with the Innu. There is strong evidence to support that there was trade between the Beothuk and the Innu. The Inuit arrived around 100 years before the Europeans arrived. The two groups did not blend culturally. French exploration of Upper Canada began in the mid-1500s and carried on into the St. Lawrence River, resulting in trade alliances forming between Indigenous peoples and the explorers. Reliance on government assistance began as early as 1593 as lands were systematically being taken away from the Innu people. In 1763, with Britain now in control of British North America, the Royal Proclamation gave the Crown rule over lands and Indigenous peoples. The establishment of assimilation laws in 1814 began the dark period for the Innu and the cultural genocide that would follow. Settlers were taking over lands for fur trade, and Innu people were being moved from their ancestral hunting grounds before the 1900s. In 1876, the Indian Act was amended and laws pertaining to assimilation were consolidated. The Indian Act 1876. The happiest future for the Indian race is absorption into the general population, and this is the object of the policy of our government. The great forces of intermarriage and education will finally overcome the lingering traces of native customs and traditions. Duncan Campbell Scott, Department of Indian Affairs. As animal populations decreased, the Innu relied more on assistance from missionaries, traders, and the government. The people were restricted to the vicinity of their own villages. Mines were opened in 1953 in western Labrador, which resulted in them being even more restricted from their lands. In the 60s, residential schools opened, separating parents from children, effectively ending the transmission of culture. Proud hunters were cut off from providing for their families. In 1969, Churchill Dam was created, flooded without warning. Hunting lands and equipment were destroyed. People lost everything. Situations were made worse in the 80s when low-level frequencies put strain on the people. Thank you for watching my brief timeline on the history of the Innu in Labrador and Newfoundland.